So friends, welcome back to today's lecture. And today I'll be talking about things. Yes, so today what I'll be doing is that I'll be finishing this comparison of sociology with other social sciences. And yesterday we talked about sociology versus political science. We talked about sociology versus political science. Then we talked about sociology versus uh, philosophy. Okay. So similarly, we talked about certain topics. Okay, like sociology versus economics, sociology versus ethics. Today we'll be talking about yet another uh, round of content, and that is comparison of sociology with other social sciences. This is part 2. So what I'll be doing here is that this slide I've already shown you earlier also. We'll finish this part. Today we'll be finishing this part, that is scope of subject we have already done. Today we're going to finish this comparison of sociology with other social sciences, and tomorrow we'll be finishing the whole unit 1 with the completion of sociology and common sense. And tomorrow only I'll be discussing certain questions, okay, from this part as well as from this part. Okay, just like I showed you certain questions and I showed you the thought framework, like what is the guideline along which you can write a content and get a good answer. Okay, so this is the same set of question that is common to both scope of subject as well as comparison of sociology with other social sciences. Now this slide also I have shown you earlier, yesterday only. So we've already finished this part. This part we have already finished yesterday. Today we're going to finish these 3 parts, that is anthropology, history and philosophy. Anthropology, history and philosophy. And again, since we need to generate certain points so that you can write a good answer, so accordingly what we will do is that we will make sure that we give you certain fodder points, good fodder points. Okay, now first thing first is anthropology. So if you look here, first of all, sociology, I'm again giving you a kind of definition with respect to sociology. And here you can see, as per Emile Durkheim, how Emile Durkheim, a renowned functionalist, positivist who is also a sociologist, how he defined sociology. So as per Emile Durkheim, sociology is the science of institutions which refers to collective ways of thinking, feeling and acting. So you can use this definition as it is, verbatim to verbatim, to gain good marks. Then comes, what is anthropology? What is anthropology? So you can say that anthropology is basically a study of human beings and their ancestors along space and time. There is no space and time constraint, okay, with focus on physical characteristics, social environment, including their culture, okay, including their culture. So this is a bit of anthropology. So when we talk about anthropology, see, since you guys are the new aspirants, earlier when there were 2 optionals, there was a strict guidelines like which 2 optionals you cannot choose. So you cannot choose sociology with anthropology. So they both are more or less one and the same thing. So we have to generate certain points whenever we are writing about the contrasting point, we are writing about the similarity between sociology and anthropology. So we have to generate point like that. So since anthropology deals with the study of human beings and their ancestors, this is very important, along the space and time, and they also focus upon the physical characteristics okay, like DNA, fingerprinting, archaeology, skeleton forms, or all those things. So there's a bit of biological you can say notion also here. Okay, then you can say human to human interaction including culture, because in sociology also we study social environment and their culture. Okay, but this part, that is physical characteristic, is not there in sociology. Okay, we don't study the skeleton form, we don't study archaeological excavations, we don't study DNA, fingerprinting, all those things we don't study in sociology. Okay, and also about the ancestry, though we focus, we study a bit of like evolution in sociology, but our major focus in sociology is mostly the present time. Okay, mostly the present time. Now I am giving you, first I hope you understood this part. Now I am giving you a definition, and that is by Melville J. Hurkowitz. Quote it as it is: anthropology is the study of human in totality. Use this critical word, totality, in terms of space and time. It is the science of man and his work. Okay, science of man and his work. Now if I have to give certain examples, okay, before that there's a subdiscipline also, that is called social and cultural anthropology, that has been historically very close to sociology from their beginnings, as they both study human society. They both study, when we talk about both study human society, we're talking about social anthropology as well as sociology. Okay, now if I have to take an example, right, so I'll say, suppose I'm talking about religion, just to help you understand. Okay, so sociology will deal with religions like Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, etc. But when we talk about religion in anthropology, we will primarily focus upon the primitive way, ancestors religion, like old notion of religion or the tribal notion of religion. So basically we're talking about animism, totemism, naturism, etc. See what animism is, totemism is, naturism is, this I'll be talking about in detail when I'll be dealing with the religion and society. This topic is a separate topic in our paper 1 only, unit 8. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that in anthropology, just to give a stark contrasting point, anthropology we are dealing with the primitive societies, while sociology is dealing with the present societies, okay. So that is when we talk about the primitive society, we say tribal society, because tribal societies still have the primitive way of living. Any doubt till now? Any doubt? In case you have any kind of a doubt, please do ask. Now I'll be talking about the mutual relationship between sociology and anthropology, again generating certain points. And I'm talking about the first point is emergence. When we talk about the emergence, the both sociology and anthropology, they both trace their, you can say, emergence with respect to the events that were happening in Europe primarily. You remember I talked about various kind of a scientific revolution, intellectual influences, all those things. So similarly, here also in sociology and anthropology, when I talk about various kind of events, especially the scientific revolutions, because scientific revolution was talking about what? Decoding the whole natural world. So the earlier positivists, they wanted to deploy scientific methodology that is being used in natural science to study society. That's how sociology came into being. And even scientific revolution, you remember I talked about Charles Darwin, Origin of Species, famous work, Descent of Man, like this. Like how throughout the process of evolution, the species develop certain traits so that it helps them to survive, survival of the fittest notion. Okay, then Descent of Man, that humans are the descendant of apes only. So we are basically talking about what? We're talking about the ancestry. We are studying the ancestry. So this was also one of the main reasons for the birth of a separate discipline called anthropology. Okay, I hope you got it. Next is subject matter. When we talk about subject matter, both for sociology and anthropology, there are certain topics which focus upon holistic understanding of mankind and overall human society. Like when we talk about holistic understanding of mankind, human society, so they both focus upon economic institution, political institution, religious institutions, education, family, marriage, all those things. But the catch here is that sociology primarily deals with all these things, but in the present context. In the present context. But here, anthropology, while dealing with all those same things, same concepts, but in the past context. Or you can also say modern society and the tribal society. So though they are dealing with the same thing, but the difference you can say in the present context and the past context. So I'm saying the similarity because they are dealing with the similar institutions. In that sense I'm saying. Okay, when you talk about the differences, you can use the same point but present context and the past context. This is how you can write. Next point is common concepts. Common concepts. When we talk about the common concepts, what do you mean by common concept is that these certain terminologies, structural functionalism, they were two renowned anthropologists. With functionalism we associate Bronislaw Malinowski, and here we talk about Redcliffe Brown. They were both very renowned anthropologists. So this concept, both these concepts are common to both sociology and anthropology. And here when we say these things, what we mean is that functionalism, which was original to anthropology, it was imported from anthropology and used in sociology also. So that is why we say the earlier sociologists were positivist and functionalist. We also use certain words like Talcott Parson was structural functionalist, like that. Okay, Herbert Spencer was a structural functionalist, like that. Structural functionalism in sociological discipline originated from the Herbert Spencer. Okay, this is how we say. But this, both the concepts were original to the anthropology. But we use both these concepts both in sociology and anthropology. Then comes common methods. See, common methods with respect to the collection of the data. With respect to the collection of data, we use the same kind of a method. Okay, same kind of a method. Like we say we use participant observation. Participant observation. Okay, where both the sociologists or for that matter anthropologists, they go and visit any particular society doing a field study and then collecting a data. Just like we say a very renowned sociologist Andre Bethel. Okay, he went to a village called Shripuram village. Though we'll be studying all these things, Andre Bethel, Louis Dumont in our paper too. He went to the Shripuram village in Tamil Nadu, Thanjavur district, and there he went to collect data and study the caste system. Okay, the caste system. So he was doing a field study. Similarly, when you talk about the participant observation, like Redcliffe Brown, he studied Andaman and Nicobar Islanders. Bronislaw Malinowski studied the Trobriand Islanders. Because they became the part of the tribal people and started observing their daily practices so that they can come to a conclusion like that. Then we have connection with the history. Okay, when we say, suppose if I'm talking about sociology, see, like sociology, I'm saying Auguste Comte. What he was saying throughout historical approach, how the society evolved from one stage to another stage. So he was giving what? TMP stage, theological, metaphysical and positivist. Just like Karl Marx, talking about what? Evolution of society from one stage to another stage throughout the historical epoch. So they were what? The great sociologists. Similarly, if I say anthropologist, James Fraser, he was also talking about the evolution of society. He was a great anthropologist. He was saying the first stage was magic, second stage was religion, and the third stage was science. So magic, religion and science. So both anthropologists and sociologists, they both have a deep connection with the history, because they both, just like talking about the evolution of society from one stage to another stage. Okay, I've given you the example, you can quote the same thing. Then comes importance to cultural aspect. Importance to cultural aspect. And see, culture, I have given a very beautiful standard definition here as per E.B. Tyler. Edward Burnett Tyler. E.B. Tyler. He beautifully defined culture, that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of a society. As a member of society, I'll again repeat, that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. And if you look things like for sociology, or for that matter anthropology, they both focus upon studying the culture of society. They both focus upon studying the culture of a society, because culture basically nudges the behavior of an individual, how individuals should behave. Okay, so to that extent you can say that both focus upon culture. Okay, next we say is relation with the natural sciences. Now this is quite interesting. See, I already showed you and talked about that earlier sociologists, they were positivist, because they believe that we need to use natural science methodology, that is scientific methodology, to be deployed to study society. Okay, so as far as earlier sociologist is concerned, there is indeed a connection of sociology with a natural science, because they believed in deploying the same methodology that is being used in natural science to study society. But even in anthro, the connection is there, but compared to sociology, anthro has a deeper connection with natural science. Why? Because here we are studying what? We are studying skeleton forms, we are studying DNA, fingerprinting, biological things, scientific things we are studying. So it has a deeper connection with natural science. So both sociology and anthro have a connection with the natural science, but anthropology has a deeper connection compared to sociology with a natural science. Okay, this is how we say. Then comes shared department. This is a bit of superficial It might seem very superficial statement, but this is also very important, because when the sociology department was started in 1919 in Bombay University, okay, with the Patrick Gates as the head of the department. Patrick Gates as the head of the department. In that sociological department, it consists of both sociology and anthropology sub-departments. So you can see how much similarity is there between sociology and anthropology. Okay, sociology and anthropology. And even a very renowned, just like I mentioned the name of that scholar, very renowned sociologist, Andre Bethel, he himself said that there is no difference between sociology and anthropology, and it depends completely on the researcher what he or she wants the other people to call them as. Whether the researcher wanted to be called as sociologist or anthropologist, it depends completely on the whims and the fancies of the researcher, because both sociology and anthropology, there is hardly any difference. Okay, so I have given you certain further points with respect to the mutual relationship. Now I'll talk about certain differences, and again certain pointers. The points I've already written. See, with respect to the subject matter, because now I have to talk about the contrasting point, so that is why I've written it like that. Okay, so that it is very self-explanatory. First of all, in sociology, it is a study of society. But when we talk about the anthropology, it is the totality of man, the study of man, everything that concerns human, including physical thing also, physical and socio-cultural aspect. The socio-cultural aspect is here also, but this physical part is not here in sociology. Okay, then it is both micro and micro, means that when we talk about sociology, we are focusing upon, because there was earlier sociologists were positivist, so they were focusing upon a kind of a formula, broad generalization, so that is why macro. Plus later sociologists were focusing upon individual meanings and motives, in-depth analysis, so that's why I've written micro and micro. Here anthropology, they basically focus upon study of the primitive society, so there you cannot come up with a formula, because you become a part of their society, observe their society for a long period of time, like an ethnographic study for 5-10 years, to keep on observing their society, and then you make a detailed analysis. It's like a rich contextual data that you have, where you cannot arrive at law like generalization. That is why I've given a micro analysis, because a micro analysis, so it is a qualitative methodologies. Here you can have quantitative and qualitative both, because micro and macro both is there. Then approach is both top and bottom up approach, like inductive and deductive reasoning. Inductive and deductive. Okay, when you say top, basically you are simply trying to arrive at generalization. Okay, broad view. Bottoms up, like from micro, or you can say detailed observation, you're trying to arrive at generalization. Okay, here you have a bottom up approach only. Then philosophical connection, yes, sociology has indeed a philosophical connection. Okay, much more deeper connection, because when we study Emile Durkheim, he seems to use certain things like social fact, okay, like collective conscience. These are certain terminologies through which we try to develop an understanding of the society, just like Weber was using word called Verstehen approach, like ideal types. Okay, this is what we say. While with respect to anthropology, it does not have a connection. It does not have to, because it's more scientific, right? Initial field of study, it desires to understand social phenomena in industrialized Western countries, because that's how the sociology as a separate discipline emerged. So whatever things were happening, whatever major changes were occurring in the European countries, so to resolve all those issues, a need was felt to come up with a distinct discipline. But when it comes to anthropology, though began in Western countries, but focus was outside the Western world, because here the focus was on non-Western part, that is primitive society. So anthropology basically emerged to study primitive society so that we can talk about the origin of religion, we can talk about the origin of family, we can talk about how marriage as an institution originated, like that. Okay, so that is why we talk about what? We talk about study of primitive society, right? Any doubt till now you have, friends? So now what we'll talk about is, just a minute. So now what we'll talk about is connection with the natural sciences. See, superficial connection, this is what I explained to you also earlier, while anthropology has a deeper connection, deep connection. Okay, deep connection. So is there any kind of a doubt that you have? Okay, now when we talk about the social anthropology, now what is social anthropology? Now here we are making a comparative analysis, comparative study of the people who are living in different social and cultural setting. So see, I've given a definition. Social anthropology studies the diversities of human societies in time and space while looking for commonalities across them. It uses a holistic strategy linking local and global, see, local and global, past and present, to offer various approaches to understanding contemporary challenges. Like we talk about again the intersection, sociology and anthropology, like this. And since anthro was focusing most on the past part and sociology is in the present, because we are talking about the differences here. Okay, so we are trying to talk about what? The convergence of both the past and the present. That is why past and present. And also you can say, when we say anthro is primitive society, while we talk about modern industrial society, primarily dealing with this part. Okay, so what we can say, it is like primitive is local and global is modern industrial society. This is how we connect things. Then subject matter studies the social, symbolic and non-material material lives of the contemporary and historically recent human societies. So we say social, symbolic, non-material and material lives of contemporary, use this word, contemporary and historically recent human societies, taking the concept of culture center to its goal. We're talking about how the people are interacting with each other, what is the symbols that they are using, what kind of a science and languages that they are using, material and non-material. We're talking about both the cultural aspect as well as the technological aspect, the physical aspect of the society, how the society is arranged, how the houses are made. Okay, like that. Then study on the impact of cell phones on sadhus in India. A beautiful example for social anthropology that you can quote it here. Okay, because when we talk about sadhus, right, all those sadhus, when you talk about, they talk about what? They resembles what? The earlier form of society. But now with the overall evolution of technology, when the internet is now there, every nook and corner, now we have the internet in our cell phone also. Okay, so using the internet, what is the use of, what is the influence of those cell phones, smartphones on the sadhus? Okay, how modernity is now overlapping with the overall historical things. Okay, or you can say linking local with the global, past and the present. So how modernity is now linking with the past, okay, which is resembled by the sadhus. So we can talk about various things, just like we have astro talk, astrology, astro talk. So using the internet now, you can go and talk about like how your life would be. You're talking about your kundlis. Okay, astrology part you can talk about. You can also talk about like sadhus, they are doing prachar on internet. Okay, campaigning on internet, that they could resolve their issues and all those things. Okay, so and also you can also talk about things like how they are propagating their religious ideologies using the internet. You can also talk about things like modern society talks or resembles cars, and how different cars have different wallpapers of their gods. So they are flaunting their gods. Okay, so this is how you can talk about the overall overlapping of past with the present. Okay, now contribution of social anthropology to sociology. These are certain thinkers that you can always use to quote to gain extra brownie points. Okay, like James Fraser, social anthropology as that branch of sociology that deals with primitive society. So he's talking about what? He's talking about social anthropology. Okay, that primarily deals with primitive society. This is their separate opinion, their own personal opinion. So like Redcliffe Brown, a very renowned anthropologist who talked about the notion of structural functionalism, I wrote few slides back. Social anthropology is a comparative sociology. This is what we have been talking about in the previous slide also. Then Evans Pritchard, social anthropology is a branch of sociological study, that branch which chiefly devotes itself to the primitive society. So everybody is talking about the social anthropology primarily deals with the primitive society. Then E. Adamson Hebel, the relationship between sociology and social anthropology are in their broadest sense one and the same. Both are the study of social interrelationship, the relationship of men to men. Okay, so these are certain notions. Now, any doubt? We have finished this sociology versus anthropology. Now we will talk about history. So if we talk about the history, what do you mean by history? It is simply the study of the past. Study of the past. So when we talk about the study of the past, you know, in your UPSC preparation, you'll be talking about the study of modern history with respect to India, right? You talk about study of human past, and it is when you talk about the study of human past, like modern history, India during the time of independence, India during the time of Britishers. So what you look into data that have been written by someone else. So that data you have not collected, that is a secondary data. So in history, you look for secondary data always. Okay, where you already have a written document and you do an analysis of this written document, which is basically a secondary data because somebody else has written those records and whatever records you have. Okay, so basically you try to know your past. This historical analysis means that you try to delve in your past, try to understand the past, and through past you're trying to understand the present. This is what you say. Okay, now I'm giving you a definition with respect to history as E.H. Carr. History is an unending dialogue between the present and the past, and the chief function of the historian is to master and understand the past as a key to understanding of the present. Okay, then these are certain statements that you must use. If you remember, that will be really good. Okay, like Robert Bistade, what he says that if past is seen as a cloth, then history is interested in individual threads, okay, and strands that make it, while sociology focus on particular pattern. So overall pattern, how the society is arranged, what are the conditions prevailing, that is the basic thing like we talk about sociology. But how the individuals are arranged, okay, how they are interacting, that basically deals with the history. So history is interested in individual threads. This is basically a kind of philosophical statement. Okay, you can use these statements as it is. Then we have G.E. Howard's, history is a past sociology and sociology is a present history. Again, a very probable question, like history is a past sociology and sociology is a present history. So a lot of times, because when I'll be talking in the upcoming slide, you'll be able to decode like how we can say history is a past sociology or sociology is a present history. Okay, now thinkers view on relationship between history and sociology. Now first thing first is Auguste Comte. See, the same thing, there is a bit of repetition also because he was using what? theological, metaphysical, and positivist stage, right? Throughout historical epoch, how the society evolved from one stage to another. Then we have Ferdinand Toyney. He was talking about Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. Now he was talking about what? Because these are German words. So basically, Gemeinschaft was resembling what? Gemeinschaft was resembling, this was resembling a primitive society, or you can also say the simple society, while Gesellschaft resembles modern society, modern complex society. So these two terminologies suggest what? That there is an evolution of society from this primitive simple society to modern complex society. Okay, so basically what you're saying, throughout historical epoch, the society evolved from primitive society to the modern industrial society. Again, using the historical records. Then Neil J. Spencer talking about social changes in industrial revolution. Neil J. Spencer quote this name. Okay, here what you can say is that how the society underwent a radical change because of industrialization. The kind of changes that have been occurring in the society, especially because of industrialization, there was a rapid change in the way the goods are produced. Inanimate sources of energy is now is being used. The transportation has been radicalized, because of which the now human to human interaction is taking place more rigorously. Then you can also talk about there's a change in the institution of marriage, change in the institution of family. Okay, then there's a kind of an organic relationship. Okay, like there's a kind of interdependence between each other. This is how we say. Then Max Weber, economy and society. When we talk about Max Weber, economy and society, what he did is that he used historical data. He used the historical data with respect to the study of religion. So he collected data about various religions, for that matter Christianity, Judaism, Jainism, Hinduism, and everything. So he collected data and he tried to find out like which religion helped in rise of a capitalistic ideology. Okay, help in the rise of capitalistic ideology, and using the historical data he came to a conclusion that it is Protestant ethics that help in the rise of capitalism. Okay, then comes Karl Marx. The same thing, because he was also talking about the evolution of society throughout the historical approach, from primitive communism to ancient to feudal to capitalist, then again to communism. Okay, so these are the thinkers that you can always use. You can also use Emil Durkheim for that matter, because when we do an evolution proper analysis of Emil Durkheim, he also, while doing a landmark study on suicide, he used the historical data. He collected lots and lots of historical data on suicide, and on that basis he came to a general formula, that is rate of suicide is inversely proportional or indirectly dependent upon the degree of solidarity. Okay, so this is how you can think. Now, what is the mutual relationship? Okay, what is the mutual relationship? Any doubt till now? What is a mutual relationship? So first thing first is interrelated. How they are interrelated? See, both will talk about the concepts. They will talk about the same subject, but in a different manner. Like, if we talk about history, what they'll say, that any particular society, whether the caste system was present or not. So history will not talk about that throughout historical approach like that. Evolution they'll not talk about. What they'll talk about is that at any particular localized time and space, they'll say whether caste system was present or not. Yes or no? Okay, they will not look into whether the caste system has changed, how caste system as an institution has changed. But when we talk about sociology, this sociologist, though they both are studying the same thing, caste, but here how they'll study it, they'll study that what is the impact of caste system on society. They will simply say the caste system is present or not, but they'll say what is the impact of caste system on society. They will also talk about the evolution of caste system, how the caste as an institution has been changing its nature and form throughout the evolution of society. So this is how you have to understand. Okay, do a brainstorming. Then you talk about interdependent, like how they are interdependent. Suppose if I'm talking about status of Dalits or tribal history, what I'll say is, for that matter, suppose if I'm talking about tribals only. So ever since the tribal people came into existence till now, suppose any point, any past point I'm taking. Okay, so what history will tell you? History will give you a point of reference. Point of reference. Okay, so from here, how the tribals, their way of living has kept on changing. So history will give you a point of reference, while this everything from there to here, how their society has changed. Okay, what is the impact of globalization on the tribals? How the status of Dalits have changed along maybe 1,000 years timeline. So basically, this analysis and change is captured by sociology. So while history will talk about the point of reference, sociology will talk about the change. Here it will talk about the impact. Here it will talk about how it has evolved or changed. Okay. Similarly, historical analysis, like I'm talking about myths and folklores of tribe, like for that matter anything, Troby Ender Island. Okay, for that matter you can take on any tribe you want. Okay, you take on Hopi tribe, for that matter Andaman Nicobar tribe. So suppose if you're talking about, you're studying the Troby Ender Island right now, so to understand their natural practices, whatever the way of living, which god they worship, what is their way of living, dressing pattern, eating pattern, the notion of family, what is the notion of family for them, what is the notion of marriage for them, how the political institution is arranged, economic institution, how the economic activities taking place there. Okay, so when you talk about all those things, you try to understand, that how those institutions came into being. So when you try to understand the genesis of those practices or institutions, so there comes the use of history. Okay, so this is what we say, use of history. You can also say that when we talk about any kind of an historical evolution, sociology always provide you a frame of reference for frame of mind. Okay, frame of mind, kind of a sociological imagination. Okay, you remember I used this word sociological imagination by C. Wright Mills, using the word sociological imagination. So when you try to trace, suppose you're trying to trace at present what is the notion of family for them, maybe certain structure, joint family system, whatever. But when you try to go to genesis, when the family as institution actually emerged, so you also have that sociological imagination, like why family as institution came into being, what have been the social condition that point of time. So that is why I'm using the word sociological imagination. Okay, so sociology also provide a frame of mind, because it helps you to analyze the social situation. Frame of mind. Okay, then comes data sharing. See, both sociology and history, they always use each other data, is each other data. Okay, so now since you have understood these parts, so now you can say why we can with conviction say that sociology is a past history and history is the past sociology. Okay, so when we say that sociology is a past history, so to understand your present, you have to go back to the past. Similarly, for history, you can say it's the past sociology. What were the conditions prevailing because of which any particular institution came into being, because of which the caste system came into being, because of which the patriarchy as an institution came into being, because of which the child marriage as an institution came into being, because of which a practice called dowry came into existence, practice called sati came into existence, like that. Okay. Now, differences between sociology and history. Again, certain points that I'm giving it to you here. Different disciplines they are. Okay, different disciplines. How they both are different disciplines? Because they both differ in their orientation towards past and present. Both differ in their orientation with respect to past and present. Past and present. Okay. Just like history will be primarily interested, it is all about past, while sociology, because we have to talk about the contrasting point, is about present. And history, it is at any particular time and space. Like what is the, during the Gupta period, what was the status of women? Simple. During the Gupta period, what was the status of the Dalits? What is the religion? What is the significance of religion? Like that, at any particular time frame, right? But in sociology, we do not have a localized time and space. Okay, because in sociological analysis basically transcends time and space. Okay. Then comes research approaches. How can you say that these both sociology and history, they are different with respect to research approaches? Because see here, history always focus upon the past, while sociology always focus upon the present, doing the analysis with respect to the present time, present situation. So when you talk about the past, you always look for secondary data. This is what I told you in the earlier slide also. When you look into the present, you can focus both on the primary data or secondary data. Primary data means that you yourself are going and visiting the field and collecting the data. Secondary data, that somebody else has collected the data, you're simply using that data to do analysis. So whenever you are using this secondary data in sociology, it is always showing the intersection between sociology and history. Remember that part. Because somebody else has collected the data and you're simply doing the analysis, right? Then comes different approaches. Here, a very renowned sociologist is there who said that sociology is more of a natural science. Okay, more of a natural science which focus upon making an hypothesis, classification and generalization. So that famous name is John Goldthorpe, who said that sociology is a natural science which focuses upon hypothesis formulation, classification and generalization. While if you look into history, history has certain other things, like it collects the concrete data and interpret it as a unique phenomena. Collect concrete data and interpret it as a unique phenomena. This is how we say. Okay. So because when you say sociology as a natural science, it means what? Earlier sociologists, they were positivists, so they were wanted to use natural science methodology that is being used in natural science methodology that is being used in various kind of a natural science like physics, chemistry, all those things. So they want to deploy the scientific methodology to study society. So that is why they're focusing upon making an hypothesis first, classification, generalization to arrive at law-like generalization. While history basically focus upon any particular concrete data. Okay, and they simply explain it. They don't go delve into that thing. Like Sati system was there. Okay, they will not try to focus more upon that. What is the impact on the society? Why it was there? Like all that thing, they will not focus too much. Okay, then next is, remember the name here, by the way, this John Goldthorpe. Remember this name, please. Then comes the last point, that is nomothetic in idiography. Remember the name Radcliffe Brown. Okay, very renowned anthropologist Radcliffe Brown, with whom we have associating the concept of structural functionalism. So he said that sociology is nomothetic, while idiography is, while history is idiography. Sociology is nomothetic while history is idiography. So when we say nomothetic, what does it mean? It means nomos, always take it like that. Nomo means norms. Okay, norms, rules, regulations of the society. And when you are driven by completely rules and regulations of society, you don't have an individuality. So what happened? You don't have a mind of your own. You're completely driven by social factors. So when you're driven by social factors, so human tends to behave in a patterned form of interaction. So that is why we are going, when we talk about nomothetic, we are going the positivist way to focus upon coming up with a law-like generalization, some kind of a formula. Why? Because they believe that humans are only and only driven by the social factors only, right? While Radcliffe Brown said that history is simply an idiography because it simply describes unique events. Any kind of unique event, they simply explain it. Like what was the lifestyle of monk in a particular, what is the lifestyle of a monk in a particular monastery, like that. Okay, so this is how we say. Now historical sociology, again when you talk about historical sociology, we are talking about the intersection. So historical sociology is a subdiscipline of sociology which emerged in the 20th century as a result of the intersection between sociology and history. The subject matter it studies present society in terms of the past. So see this part, studies present society in terms of the past by analyzing how people, communities and societies have been changing over a period of time and how they have transformed themselves in a contemporary modern society. So how the society have been changing, okay, by analyzing the people to people interaction. Earlier, how the people used to interact, how people used to dress up, how they used to what kind of food they used to eat, like that. Okay, and now how they have changed. So some relevant examples I have quoted. Use those examples as it is. Okay, they are beautiful examples. Like first thing is G.S. Ghure. G.S. Ghure will be studying in lot of detail in our paper 2. Interlogical approach. Interlogical means using the interlogical means local text. Okay, religious you can say scriptures to understand the Indian society. Okay, so textual, interlogical means textual view of the society, using the bookish view of the society. By reading the ancient scriptures, you are trying to develop an understanding of the Indian society. We'll go in about interlogical approach in a lot of detail in our paper 2. So G.S. Ghure interlogical approach uses ancient religious texts for studying Indian society. So to understand present Indian society, you are delving into the ancient religious text. Okay, like that. So a culmination of sociology and history intersection. Then rights of LGBTQ, historical struggle and various stages in the past and the important past are important, making the movement successful. Impact of fire on social setup, impact of transportation. Okay, internet, industrialization, then women, family, all those things. Then study of impact of French Revolution on family and industries. Okay, like French Revolution, when it happened, how it started changing the family as institution, how it started changing the marriage as institution, how it started changing the overall manufacturing of goods and services. Okay, then study of PVTG. Okay, these are tribal groups and denotified tribes in India. What has been the history? What is their status at present? Okay, that is particularly vulnerable tribal groups that we are talking about. Okay, then Wall Street movement, Arab Spring movement, like what is the condition of the Arab area right now? And it is attributed to a revolution that broke out in Tunisia way back in 2010 or 11, right? Wall Street movement, like Wall Street movement, which broke out in the USA in the aftermath of US recession in 2008, and it basically was talking about movement was completely against economic inequality. Okay, all those things. So now I have talked about and given lots of example about the historical sociology as well. And after this we'll be moving to the last comparison, that is sociology versus philosophy. Sociology versus philosophy. So any doubt till now? Any doubt till now? Hmm. Now we'll talk about the philosophy part. Okay, philosophy. So when we talk about the philosophy, basically what philosophy is all about, it talks about existential question, that who am I, what is the essence of life, what is the truthfulness of the life, okay, how the ideal society should be. Okay, these are kind of existential questions, so we try to develop an understanding about the truth. Okay, we try to develop an understanding about the life through philosophical notations, philosophical concepts, right? So there are four parts of philosophy: epistemology, ethics, metaphysics, logics. Then definition: it is the systematized study of general and fundamental questions such as those about existence, reason, knowledge, values, mind and language. These are static things that you can read. Then there are certain famous scholars who talked about philosophy, like Immanuel Kant. Okay, Immanuel Kant. We'll be dealing with the Immanuel Kant later when we'll move ahead. So Immanuel Kant says philosophy as the science and the criticism of cognition. Cognition means how you develop an understanding about anything. Okay. Then Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte, a very renowned sociologist, was also known as the father of sociology. He himself, the very first famous book name was Positive Philosophy. Positive Philosophy. See, whenever he was using this terminology like theological, metaphysical, positivist, so he was using philosophical connotation to understand how society evolved from one stage to another. So that was only an idea. Na? Philosophy is all about ideas. You start generating ideas. On the basis of those ideas, which are abstract in nature, you try to develop an understanding about anything. So he was also saying that society, just like a child, just like a human evolved from one stage to another stage, similarly, the society has also evolved from one stage to another stage. That is theological, metaphysical, positivist. Okay. Then Alfred Weierkart. He says sociology is productive only when it has philosophical basis. So you can quote all these things, especially Auguste Comte and Alfred Weierkart. Then certain examples. Suppose if I'm talk about examples only, you can say that you can talk about certain questions like why human exist. Okay, why human exist? If this is philosophy, why human exists, then sociology will deal with what? How human to human interaction is taking place, like that. What is the quality of interaction? Okay, this is what we say. And how human to human interaction is impacting the social institution, and vice versa also, how social institution is impacting the human to human interaction, like that. Okay, now we will talk about certain mutual relationship also between sociology and philosophy. See, we are following the same kind of a trend where we talk about the convergence and also the divergence part, so that in case a question comes, you are able to answer both of the part. Okay, so first thing is common starting point. How it is a common starting point? See, we can say that philosophy is the starting point of all sociological research. Philosophy is the starting point of all sociological research. Okay, like if you look into Emil Durkheim, he developed a notion about social fact, that subject matter of sociology is social fact, and sociology is all about doing the scientific study of this social fact. So using the notion of social fact, he was trying to develop an understanding about any social phenomena. For that matter, religion is a social fact, suicide is a social fact, language is a social fact, laws are the social fact, even society is a social fact, like that, right? He also used certain other terminologies like collective conscience, like collective representation. You might have read this in newspaper, like whenever we come across any kind of a incident which is very inhumane, okay, so Supreme Court, while talking about punishment, just like they talk about the punishment in the Nirbhaya case, they say that this kind of an incident shook the collective conscience of society. So there you come, that what is the use of collective conscience. Okay, collective conscience, like what is the morals, laws, ethical values which is governing the society. Okay, so Supreme Court, time and again, they have been using this terminology, collective conscience. Okay. Similarly, if you see Max Weber, even he used certain kind of ideas which were abstract in nature, philosophical ideas like Verstehen approach to study society, just like you say ideal types. I'll explain all these things in our unit 4 in lot of detail. Okay, Verstehen means that if there are two person, okay, or for that matter making it more easy, suppose there is a person, okay, and the person one is behaving in a certain manner. So being a sociologist, in order to understand why this person is behaving in that manner, so I should be trained enough, I should have that objective frame of mind, that I'm able to put myself into the shoes of that person and understand in a very objective manner why that person is behaving in that particular manner. Okay, so that is called Verstehen. Okay, ideal type is a kind of a tool to develop an understanding about any social phenomena in an objective manner. Okay, then sociological discipline has philosophical root. See, if you have seen the very first lecture, all the intellectual influences, okay, everything, they came from the earlier philosophers, just like Montesquieu, John Locke, Rousseau, Voltaire, okay, for that matter Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Ibn Khaldun. Okay, all those things you can quote it here, because they were also talking about how the society should be, what are the issues that were prevalent in society, because sociology as a distinct discipline emerged in 19th century. Before that also different philosophers were talking about society, how society should be, like Montesquieu, John Locke, Rousseau, Voltaire. These people have been talking about the rise of modern states, how the society should be, what should be an ideal society. Okay, like Socrates, Plato, ethical society. Aristotle was talking about education, Aristotle was talking about revolution, Aristotle was talking about slavery, all those things. Then comes moral philosophy and sociology. The moral philosophy means like values, morals, that is guiding your behavior. So when we talk about moral philosophy versus sociology, you can talk about various thinkers: Emil Durkheim, Max Weber, even in general positivists. Just like Emil Durkheim was saying that whenever you study any social phenomena, always study social phenomena by treating those social phenomena as thing. So always study social phenomena by treating them as a thing which react mechanically to external stimuli. So when you treat them as a thing, you don't have any kind of an emotional biasness, emotional attachment with that particular object. So you'll be able to study in a very objective frame of mind. So that is why He was talking about value free sociology, that there should be no preconceived notion, or if those values, your values, basically impinge or enter your sociological research, it will completely contaminate your data. Similarly, Max Weber, the same thing is about positivist Max Weber also talking about value neutrality. What is right for the researcher to do? Always conduct study by keeping aside all your preconceived notions, so that you are able to conduct a research in a very objectified manner. Similarly, R.K. Merton, if you have seen yesterday's lecture, I talked about R.K. Merton. He was talking about ethical norms that should guide the sociological researcher, for that matter any scientific researcher. Okay, he was talking about Mertonian norms, ethical norms, institutional imperatives of norms. You remember I talked about kudos, communism of knowledge, universalism, disinterestedness, organized skepticism. Like what should be the guideline for all those researchers? Okay, then we have sociological research. See, all those sociological research will be of no use if we ignore the larger problems of the social life, okay, which are basically part of philosophical world. So all the sociological research will become completely useless if we don't address the problems that are prevalent in society. Okay, just like in philosophy, what we say, how an ideal society should be. Okay, just like in sociology, we say sociology, we say how society is. But in philosophy, we talk about how society ought to be. Ought to be. Okay, what would be the feature of an ideal society? How ideal society would look like? So similarly, whatever sociological research we are doing, we should do in that manner that we are able to solve the problems prevalent in society. Then only we will be able to answer all the questions of this philosophical world, like the issue of poverty, issue or issue of high suicide rate, issue of crime against women. So that is why we say that sociologists should not only talk about the reasons but should also suggest solutions to resolve the issues. So this is how we talk about the mutual relationship between sociology and philosophy. Then what are the differences between philosophy and sociology? Certain further points again for you, for helping you to understand. Just like area of study is society, social institution, human to human interaction, here we talk about reality in totality, understanding everything. Okay, when you talk about the interpretation of society, we talk about how human indulge in social action. Here we talk about existential questions like what is the reason why I'm existing, what is the true nature of life, okay, what is life after that, all those things, philosophical questions that you talk about. Time and space constraint. See, here whatever analysis we are doing, it may have a constraint with respect to, it may or may not have constraint with respect to time and space. When we do sociological analysis, okay, we might explain any particular society, or we also talk about the evolution of society, so it may or may not have the constraint with respect to time and space. But when you talk about the philosophy, it is always universally correct. So we say that there is no time and space constraint here. Then nature is more concrete, while compared to philosophy, it is more, sociology is more concrete nature, while philosophy is more abstract. Focus is what society is, but here we focus upon what society ought to be, a kind of an ideal society. Okay, so friends, with this we have completed our comparison of sociology with philosophy. I have given you comparison with respect to 7 subjects. Okay, yesterday I did talked about political science, economics, ethics, then psychology. Today I talked about anthropology, history and philosophy, and I think this amount of content is more than sufficient to write an answer. If you have more apt content, if you want to add more apt word or content, make sure it is as per the demand of the question. Okay, and try to come up with more and more further points, so that your answer becomes more beautiful compared to your contemporaries. Okay, So friend, okay, there is one more thing that we talk about is methods. When we talk about the methods, see, with respect to sociology, it is scientific method, because earlier when I'm comparing it with positivist, you can say scientific method. But here philosophy, there is no scientific method, because I have to generate a further point which is contrasting in nature. Okay, so this marks the end of sociology versus philosophy. And with this, we have completed the scope of sociology as a subject and comparison of sociology with other social sciences. And tomorrow I'll be talking about sociology and common sense, and I'll also be discussing certain questions. Okay, so thank you and all the best. See you tomorrow.